welcome to Inside Cottonwood. I'm your host, Doug Bartosh. I'm also your city manager. And we're here today with Police Chief Steve Gesell and Christian
Oliva del Rio.
Oliva del Rio, who is the CEO, right, of the Cottonwood Chamber. And we thought it was a good time to get together and talk, or maybe even update our citizens on what's happening with the panhandling and kind of homeless issue in town. We've got a new program coming up, but let's start with the chief and talk about where have we been. I mean, geez, probably back in
way back.
Yeah, February.
Right. Way back.
You and I talked about the panhandling issue, and you definitely had some programs going. So if you could kind of recap where we've been, that would be great.
Certainly. Well, you, thanks again for hiring me. You hired me in January. It seems like we've accomplished quite a bit, and we have over the past 10 or 11 months in a lot of different areas, but this one in particular. And the story began, that conversation between a city manager and a police chief was replicated between a police chief and citizens throughout Cottonwood, right before and after when I started, about what people were perceiving as a spike in our homeless population. So having come from the coast of California, where homelessness is absolutely a crisis proportions, as is the mental health crisis as well, we had some models there that I was interested in seeing would work here. But the first thing that I needed to do personally was we needed to ensure we had a proper understanding of the dynamic as it is in this particular city, in this community. So what drives, in my experience, one of the drivers behind public perception when it comes to the topic of homelessness, which is a very, very complex social issue, as we know, is mainly driven by the number of panhandlers, or the visible individuals that are seen, which generally in this city, no difference. It's the panhandlers, the number of panhandlers. And when I got here, there was quite a, relative to our population, there was a lot of panhandlers. So the first thing we did is, hey, let's send out our officers. There's case law, and just to set the record straight, panhandling is legal. There is a freedom of speech. We all have that right, thankfully, in the First Amendment, and we, as a police agency and an arm of the government, we respect that, and we have to respect it, and we do. So that, I think, has kind of stymied a lot of the police contact with panhandlers around the country to a certain extent, in that we're afraid of violating someone's First Amendment speech. And my perspective has always been, hey, if there's people out there that want and need help, we need to find them. We need to do whatever it takes to do that. And if we're not talking to people in the corners, we're not meeting that end goal, number one. And number two, we want to find out, are these people that are coming into the city, are they migratory through the city, or are they residents? So that's what we did, and ultimately, even I was surprised to find out that, and this is not scientific, but the reports back, we estimated around 90% of the panhandlers we contacted in the city of Cottonwood were not homeless. So that was the beginning, and we like to continue to talk about that, because generally speaking, we make an assumption that panhandling is tied to homelessness, and many times it's not. There's individuals out there, I can tell you right now, they're out there right now in our city. There's people that need help. There's people that are flat out defrauding the public and exploiting their goodwill.
And I'm sure, Christian, you probably heard from a lot of your chamber members, as I heard from the public, is, what can we do about this?
Yeah, still hearing members calling in and talking about that, but one of the things that Steve approached us on was the Safe Shopper program, and Chamber wanted to be on board with that. We needed to address it, so it was a great program.
Because it really is, and I know Steve knows this, and you've certainly seen this firsthand as well, is it begins to kind of impact people's feelings of safety, is the quality of life, and certainly for store owners, if you've got somebody out there that's kind of making people hesitant to
Some of them were definitely being aggressive in their tactics. Using props is one thing that we've all become aware of. You need to look a little bit deeper into, what they're doing out there. It's a great program to raise awareness.
And again, as you said, Chief, it's not a situation where, we're heartless. I mean, what we're trying to do is get people help, but people who legitimately have a need for help.
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely correct, and piggybacking off of Christian's comment about the Safe Shopper program, for those that may not be familiar with it at this point, the Safe Shopper program, like the program we're going to end up talking about here, the latest initiative that we're launching, is all about reducing enabling environments, and that's something that where you sit on the spectrum, in regard to homelessness, you may have a citizen here that just wants, homeless to go away and never be seen again. And then you have somebody on this end of the spectrum that wants to help everyone. And, obviously either one of those ends of the spectrum is not, I think, socially acceptable for the most part to the masses that reside in the city. So the program that Christian was talking about is simply, it allows property owners, and it was focused primarily on business owners. That's why we dubbed it Safe Shopper. But quite frankly, any property owner, if it's a vacant lot, I just was told last week that a church wants to sign up because they've had issues in their parking lot, which is not uncommon in cities as well. But that program is simply allows us to partner with the business owner, and they fill out a simple form which is available on our website. If you go to the PD, there's a tab, and our website is being revamped right now, but it will still be on there. And anybody can fill out the form, send it back to us, and we will put it into our computer system. Our dispatchers send people out. The officers can tell whether that business is part of the program or not. And all it is allows us to issue trespass order for someone that's soliciting on private property, which we can't do without that type of agreement. Mm-hmm. So it's just another way of allowing the property owner to control their property, which I think everybody understands, regardless of that spectrum. Hopefully, that people have a right to control what happens on their property, and if they don't want solicitors on their property, then what we do is we go out and say, hey, we explain the program with them, and then they're trespassed, they can't do it anymore. And if they come back, there's no arrest generally made, there's no citations made, they're informed, and if they do come back, then they're subject to a misdemeanor arrest for trespassing. And what it ends up doing is it reduces the number of police contacts generally in parking lots that would have attracted that type of call for service, because there are incidences where people are aggressive. And I'm glad Christian brought this up, because aggressive solicitation is against the law. There's a state statute against it.
Regardless of where you're at.
Right.
Private
or public property, there is that statute. However, and I'll frequently say this, it's really ineffectual because it is a petty offense, not a misdemeanor, which essentially means there's really no ability, there's no teeth in it. If somebody doesn't show up for court, for example, there's no warrant issued for the arrest. It simply goes in their credit report.
And again, as you mentioned, I mean, you certainly saw this in California, and Cottonwood isn't unique in this state as well. I mean, this is an issue that is impacting everybody across the nation, and probably in particular in Arizona, since there was a court decision here that said they have the right to go out there and panhandle, as long as they're on public property, or they have the permission of the person who owns the property to solicit there.
And there's case law as it pertains specifically to panhandling. The case law continues to evolve, and I just was doing my own research the other day and saw that there's several pieces of what were very effectual in my former role in California in addressing panhandlers that are at intersections, and some of those cases some of those ordinances are being struck down. Generally speaking, historically, if you can tie the behavior to a government interest or public safety issue, which I do believe at some of our intersections, either private or public, these are we have a problem already with distracted driving, and given the fact that our people are trying to get on the the main thoroughfare and there's an individual 5 feet away from, you got to believe that that's going to distract them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let's go ahead and take our first break, and then we'll come back and talk about the new program.
Okay.
Come back and join us.
Todd's a great guy. I mean, look at him. What a sweetheart. Attaboy. Wait, Todd, what are you doing? How totally selfish and un-Todd-like of you. Come on, Todd. Come on, man.
Welcome back to Inside Cottonwood. I'm here with our police chief, Steve Gesell, and also the CEO of the chamber, Christian Oliva Del Oro.
Del
I've always
Rio.
known him as Christian.
Yeah.
You change your name for us.
Yeah, I know.
It would help us out.
All right, so let's talk about the new program.
Yeah.
Who wants to take off on that? Steve? Or
Yeah, well,
who do you want?
Steve is really good at this, but Steve approached us and talked to us about, like I said, the Safe Shopper program, which kind of morphed into all of this. It's a program that will allow individuals to, donate money instead of giving it to that panhandler and feeding those negative habits. This is a way for us to make sure that the money is going to the right organizations that can stop the enabling and really help the people that need a hand up rather than a handout. It's really new. We did a community forum on the 15th of this month, and then we discussed it at our chamber breakfast to try and get more businesses aware of this opportunity. And I can let Steve kind of expand on that.
And probably as you expand on this, I mean, you've done a lot of groundwork in terms of getting the community involved, because this really can't be just a law enforcement initiative.
Right. It's important. That partnership is between all of these organizations and the community is key.
So along with the chamber, I mean, who else is involved in this effort?
Well, I don't know if the camera angle can see it, but right now we're on what we call a slow rollout on this, and there'll be varied media and varied images, but this is what will be the first version that will go out and has gone out last week. But you can see at the bottom the partners are primarily Spectrum Healthcare, the City of Cottonwood, and the Chamber, and Matt Force is there obviously as a partner as well in a support mechanism, because they completely understand that addiction is a major issue that we're talking about. And as Christian mentioned, when people are compelled to give money to a panhandler, many times it makes them feel good. And I can tell you from personal experience, and I'm not in the social service provider world, that's not my field of expertise, but I can tell you even from my role over the last 60 years of being a police chief and dealing with this very complex issue, I have personal knowledge and success stories of when we start moving away from those enabling environments and getting that community collaboration and understanding, because this is a wildly misunderstood dynamic, and which means we don't have a lot of information, so I'm going to default to, I'm going to trust this person. They need help, they say they need help, so I'm going to give it to them. And I've seen time and time again, and you know, one of my favorite stories is a gentleman named Ben, who was a hardcore alcoholic, had been on the streets for 12 years. And he approached me one day, and then you know, I talked to him. He told me his daily routine. He would drink 12 or 13 malt liquors a day. That's what he would do with the handling money that he would earn, and that was his life. And then a week later, just by happenstance, the fire chief and I were driving around, and their call came out, a man down, and we went there, and it was Ben. And he had a contusion on his head. He was semi-conscious. It was a cold morning. There was an empty bottle of vodka there. And I looked at the fire chief, who I had been educating on some of the same initiatives, and he looked at me, and I just went, "That's Ben." And I go, "The people that thought they were helping Ben killed him."
Right.
And I thought he was going to die, but ultimately, the end of that story, not to take up too much of our time, it has a phenomenal ending. It's one of the other initiatives that we do here. Was working in my past employment was the alternative sentencing program. So Ben was one of the top habitual offenders, low-level offenders, which generally we'll see where we'll arrest individuals for misdemeanor offenses, and sometimes those will progress later into felonies at an enormous expense to the taxpayer. And in this case, Ben went to the ER, and his ER stay, and they did not expect him to live, was $200,000. No insurance, which ultimately the healthcare system or the provider and ultimately the taxpayer ends up paying for. But that one was a huge success story because of the fact that we were able to launch that alternative sentencing program. To my knowledge, this was 2 years ago. Ben is still in a sober living home with assistance. He has case management, which is key, but he's the resident supervisor of a sober living home. And this is a man that, you know, we didn't expect to live. And that was all because of these collaborative initiatives and a greater understanding that there are people out there that want and need help. There are people that are not ready for it and don't want it.
You know, so I think that's a big piece of this is in such a challenge, trying to get the community educated just on those kind of facts that, yeah, it makes you feel good to give these people money.
Right.
But are you, you know, in essence, financing a really destructive lifestyle by doing that?
Right.
And the providers will tell you 9 times out of 10 if the person, you know, is you know, out there panhandling, you know, a lot of people will attach those individuals to the social service providers as, you know, being enabling. And sometimes that's the case, but other times, in my experience, the majority of the individuals that are seen on the corner, especially here when we talk about 90% of them aren't homeless, they're not going to have connectivity to the social service agencies, quite frankly, because they don't feel they need it. And we can, you know, probably touch on that story from last week when we, you know, we had 2 forums, and in the first forum we had someone that was formerly homeless that's in the social service arena talk to us about a lady, and what we're seeing now is props. We're seeing a lot of fake oxygen tanks. We're seeing babies and children.
Dogs are always
have always been a main staple. But this young lady has I've never seen her, but she has an infant child, and stands at one of our corners. And the lady that we're talking about, the social service provider, comes up and gives her all the requisite information. And that's the common misperception that the general public will have, is if they knew where to get help, they would take it.
Yeah.
And this is a classic example of its reality, is the woman just basically flippantly says to her, "Why would I do that when I make this kind of money?" And then the next day, we're at the chamber breakfast, and I was considering weaving this into this presentation when a member of the audience talked about this lady and how she got out of her car and gave her money and all sorts of resources
for the
right. And she, you know, she knew it. She had been taken.
Right. Yeah.
So what was kind of the general response back from the chamber members at the breakfast? I mean, do they think they support this?
They support it. I think a lot of them are becoming more aware, thanks to Chief really shedding a light on this issue. You know, they've noticed the numbers going down. We don't see quite as many people out there, but you know, with the holiday season coming up, they're starting to come back in. And I've had members that have expressed seeing a van come in and they drop off their, you know, the person with their sign, and they do shifts, and they go back around and pick them up. And, so it's not a good thing.
So the bottom line is a lot of these people are really taking advantage of our community.
Right.
And, you know, there really is assistance out there, and we'll take our next break and then come back and talk about what are the you know, charity organizations, the opportunities for help out there, because I think if there's one place in the Verde Valley that has those available, it's got to be Cottonwood.
Right.
Come back and join us and learn a little bit more about this topic and get educated on this new program, Cottonwood Cares.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
Alvin and the Chipmunks want to remind you, bacteria can hide in food and make you ill.
Wow.
But you can keep bacteria from ruining your day with 4 simple steps. Clean.
I'm waiting for the rinse cycle.
Separate. Cook.
Fire in the hole!
And chill.
We chipmunks are notoriously tight.
Check your steps. The road trip to food safety starts at foodsafety.gov.
Welcome back to Inside Cottonwood. I'm your host, Doug Bartosh. I'm here with the CEO from the Chamber, Christian. And our police chief, Steve Gesell.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the issue of panhandling, homelessness, and how we're dealing with that here in the city of Cottonwood. But one of the programs that the chief has really come up with a lot of collaboration is the Cottonwood Cares program. So talk about this, Stephen, and tell us how it came about, how it works, the whole thing.
Certainly. So this program, again, is one of these that will not work without community support. And it's not just the partners that are on there. It won't work, or it certainly won't be as effective as it could be without the community's awareness and support of really the ideology behind it. That when you hand money to a panhandler, you don't know where it's going, and the odds are it's going to go to fuel a destructive lifestyle habit. So rather than take that chance, we are launching this in a slow rollout, what we're calling, I sometimes refer to as a directed giving campaign. So this will be kind of a public awareness campaign, and people are, it's, you make your own decision what you're going to do, but many times when we start educating people and sharing these different options with them, this is simply a better option across the board if you really want the assurance that your money is going to go to help someone transition out of homelessness rather than fuel an addictive lifestyle. So this one's very, very simple. It's cottonwoodcares.com. You can go on your computer right now and you'll find it. Currently, it's on Spectrum's website, so it's a web page on Spectrum Healthcare's website. We're ultimately probably going to migrate that to a standalone, what they call a splash page, which is a standalone page outside of Spectrum's website, but that's forthcoming. And this is very simple. We'll get the word out. It'll be print. We'll also be, we'll get these in, we want to get these in many businesses, public buildings. Anybody that wants them, we're there. And
we have these available at the chamber office. They're nice and framed, so if anybody wanted to come by, they can pick them up.
Smaller version.
Yeah,
Correct.
Smaller versions. Yeah. We want to put them wherever there's foot traffic, where people would, come by and say, oh, right. I would be that woman or person or man that would give money to the lady on the corner.
Right.
So we want to get that out there, and it's PayPal, so you can, I mean, go on and you can donate online. And the really crazy thing about this, which really shows the quality of the community here, is we've had this URL for 2 months, and this program has not been advertised at all because we've been trying to ramp this up and lay the foundation for the slow rollout. But within the first couple of days this being up, some citizen that we have here donated $500 to it. Wow. So what will happen is anyone that donates to this, there's no admin overhead charges. So pretty much every dollar that you contribute will go back into helping people transition out. And the way it'll do it is this doesn't go to individuals. The proceeds from this, say once we get to an identified amount, say it's $5,000, Spectrum will say, hey, we have $5,000 in here, and then those partners there, representatives from those partners, we need a fifth to make it, yeah. But we don't, because it's usually unanimous. Right. We'll put out we'll announce through the media that we're taking applications from care providers, is generally the way it works, and then we'll cut the big check, and we'll give an organization that has a reputation for a case management structure, or something very similar to it, where there's accountability and structure that people need that have these types of addictive behaviors or mental health issues that we know have been successful in the past. That's what we want to promote. So those type of, and that's me speaking personally, but also from experience.
Right.
So, so it is that time of year.
It is.
I know I'm already thinking about. You're thinking of Christmas and the shopping season. I'm thinking of after the year and tax season.
Right. Right.
So is this tax deductible?
It is, and that was an absolute must for us to use. We want to make the most positive impact we can, and to do that, people and businesses need it. They need that 501c3 mechanism, which Spectrum is doing under their nonprofit status. So that is, that's a win-win for a business and the community and those that need help, or an individual, right? Because it is absolutely a tax-deductible donation.
Well, and I think that's gives people that opportunity. I mean, we all want to help. We want to see people succeed. It's not only good for our country, but it's good for our community. And again, as you were saying, I think people have that tendency to hand that money to the person on the corner, and that's clearly not the best way to help them.
Right. And unfortunately, as police, police officers and their encounters, they know what happens to a lot of those donations later on after you've left. After you feel good, you go home and you go on with your life. The police officers and the public, the community, they many times see the end result.
I can give you an example of that just this morning, pulling into the chamber office. And it's actually, last Friday was the same way. We pull up, we're on a pretty busy corner, so we get a lot of these panhandlers out there, pull into our parking lot, and there's 3 or 4 beer cans and a bottle of whiskey, that's sitting there empty. And it happens all too frequently.
Probably a pretty reasonable connection that the money these people are receiving are going to fund that destructive behavior. So again, good support from the chamber and your members on this?
Oh, definitely. The business community is on board with this. We want to make a difference. It takes a village, and it takes the partnership to bring this awareness to it. And I don't know if I can share that, Steve has been instrumental in bringing this to light, and I think it's starting to spread. Other communities are coming on board. I don't know if you can share any information about that, but...
yeah, we have had interest in at least one other city just recently that knows we're moving this direction, and they've seen, as we've seen, as we reduce the enabling environment, generally speaking, it's human nature, you're going to go where you can get your resources. And that was predictable, and certainly one of the other cities locally here has approached us, and we've gone and talked to them about it. So we hope it becomes a regional effort to really kind of reduce the enabling environments throughout Yavapai County.
Right. And certainly there's people who have addictions and mental health issues that do need help, and we have the resources to provide that. I think there is probably some segment out there that maybe is unemployed or underemployed, And, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, I think you could understand that. But today, I mean, just about everybody I talk to is looking for employees.
Looking for, right.
Right.
I mean, there are jobs out there.
for sure.
So
We're looking.
I know you're looking. And so, I mean, there is a lot of opportunity. And our, I don't know if it's still called DES, Department of Economic Security. I mean, it's right here in town.
Arizona at Work is another, right?
Yeah,
So
I'm
you
sure
can-
they've got pages of listings of jobs out there.
right.
So it's not an issue where these people cannot find a job. It's either they're, you know, and quite honestly, I don't see the people who I, after 12 years, recognize as clearly being homeless. They're not the ones I see panhandling.
Right.
I mean, generally it's somebody that I haven't seen before that's out there panhandling. So.
In fact, most of the time, I think if you really speak to, and I discuss this with a lot of people that you know that are actually homeless, and the panhandlers give them a bad name. They don't like them around because it's hard for them to get the services that they really want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And that's frustrating because the people, like we said, that really want and need help, which is part of our agency's mission, is to find those individuals and contact every one of these panhandlers and figure out whether they're one of those people. But in the end, you know, like Christian is saying, that many times you get so many faux homeless or people that are, quite frankly, exploiting the public's goodwill, that the people that want and need help are lost in the deluge, and we have a hard time finding them.
Right.
You know, and again, I think it's important for people to know that the resources are out there. I mean, Catholic Charities, Old Town Mission, Spectrum, VVMC, DES,
Sanctuary.
Sanctuary,
Angie's House.
Angie's House.
Yeah, Angie's House. There are so many resources. It's just getting these people to those resources if they truly need them. If they don't truly need those resources and they're still out there panhandling, then let's find them a job and get them into some meaningful employment. Because again, it's in the best interest of our community to make sure that happens. You can help by not contributing to that kind of behavior. If you feel a need to give to Cottonwood Cares, and that address, email, or website address is on the screen. So please, now's the season to give, and let's make sure we're giving it in a way that really makes the most difference. Thank you, Christian.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Come back and join us again on Inside Cottonwood.